In today's video, we're going to talk about DeepSeek. So this is a brand new AI, yet another AI offering. But this AI comes to us specifically from China. This is from a China AI lab. Now, the thing is that we've had access to a couple of different things from China already dealing with AI. I personally like to use an AI that can make images to video. That's Minimax. So we've had access to different AI companies from China already. But this one is quite a bit different because of the nature of what it does and how it was able to do it. So let's look at DeepSeek. So this is the interface for DeepSeek. Looks very familiar, sort of like ChatGPT. In order to access this, you have to create an account or simply use Google, and then you interact with it quite simply like you do with ChatGPT. So there's very similar aspects here. Now, a big thing in comparing it to ChatGPT is that yes, this really does compare. This is an open source model, so that means that this model could be used by other people. They could run it themselves. But the big thing here is actually looking at its performance levels. So let's look at some charts here. So this first chart comes to us directly from DeepSeek, right? And this is their V3, so this is their third version of this. But this version, as it's comparing itself, look to see how it does as far as its capabilities. We see here that we have Llama, this is from Meta, and comparing it to that, it exceeds it in virtually everything. When we compare it to Claude 3.5, it exceeds it in many different instances. And then in the same thing, when we compare it with GPT-4o, we see that, wow, yeah, it's very comparable with all of them. But of course, this is something that's coming directly from the company itself, right? They always cherry pick those things. So this is a chart that comes from DeepSeek themselves. But now let's look at another chart. So this is an independent chart that went through and did some quality comparative analysis, not just with their abilities, but then also with speed and price. And that's really important as well. So when we look at the quality here, we see that it comes up as being 80. Now look at the other companies that are at 80. We have Claude 3.5, we have Gemini 1.5, and then when we look at Gemini 2.0, it's only at 82. So yeah, that's really comparable with what DeepSeek can do at coming in at 80. But now let's look at the comparison chart when we're talking about price. When we talk about price, so when we say price here, we're talking about using an API to access this in order to be able to do even more things. So if you're a company wanting to use an AI, we see here that DeepSeek is listed at zero point 0.9. So this is US dollars per 1 million tokens. So it's at 0.9. Now, initially you might say, oh, well, look, Llama and GPT 4.0, they're cheaper here, but you have to make sure that you're doing a proper comparison. So this is DeepSeek version 3 at 0.9, but what is it comparable to? Well, if we look back at the quality chart, it's comparable to Claude at 3.5. And how much does Claude 3.5 cost? 1.6. It's comparable to Gemini 1.5 as far as quality is concerned. And how much does Gemini 1.5 cost? 2.2. In the same way, you can see how, yeah, this is actually quite a bit of value for one's buck. It's very powerful in that way. If we look at their actual costs on their webpage, we could see that their prices have gone down even more. It's definitely a value for those that are wanting to use it and to access the API. And that's the other big thing about this AI here. I'm going to show you a couple of different comparisons as far as my ability to use it and what it was able to do. But before that, I want to talk a little bit more about this company because it's something that's quite interesting here. So as you may know, we in the United States have been very much restricting the GPUs, the AI chips that can be used and sent to China. Right? There's all sorts of different issues going on as far as accusations and issues dealing with intellectual property and them not playing by the rules that we want followed. So we've been restricting that. So that means that this AI company wasn't able to have huge amounts of these needed chips, these needed GPUs in order to create this AI. And so the theory is that this has helped them because necessity is the mother of all invention, right? So they've been having to work hard to do more with what they have. There is speculation that in order to create GPT-4, it cost around $100 million. Well, this company is claiming that in order for them to create DeepSeek 3, version 3, it cost them $5.5 million. Think about the huge difference going on there as far as price to create this. And also they're being very competitive with being able to access the API. So there's a lot going on there as far as the development here. Along with that, there's other speculation about things, right? So a big thing here is the training data. What did they use for the training data? Well, there's lots of sources. There's still scraping that can be done, right? And as my other video talked about that, hey, we're not running out of data. There's still brand new data that's being developed all the time, video data, all sorts of things. But there is a fair amount of people that are talking about how, hey, it looks like maybe they used a fair amount of synthetic data. So what synthetic data is that you use one AI to create information for you, and then another AI uses it for training. Now, it's okay to do that, but it has to be done in the proper way with proper safety mechanisms so it doesn't become an echo chamber and then you run into all sorts of other problems with the data itself. So it can be used properly. So there's speculation that maybe it did that. And the reason why there's speculation for this is because at one point, some people were able to, when they were using this AI, DeepSeek 3, it started to think that it was GPT-4. So it would say that I'm GPT-4, even though it was DeepSeek. I tried to replicate that. I went through and asked it, hey, who are you? What are you? I tried it in different modes and it still wouldn't do that. The closest that I got to it saying something is that when I asked it on what information it was trained on, and if it was specifically trained on GPT-4 outputs, ChatGPT outputs, it said that maybe there was a small amount. The terminology it uses that it wasn't exclusively trained on that information. So that's a possibility. Who knows? We don't have full access to their training data, but that's just something to keep in mind. Now I want to go through and show you some things that I was able to do with it to give you an example as far as the power and capability of this other AI option. So I wanted to see its writing capabilities because that's something that I use a lot of. I gave it this prompt. I said, please assume the role of a university lecturer and learning science researcher with over 20 years of experience in higher education. My PhD is in education, and I'm focusing on artificial intelligence AI into education. Please help me write a rough draft on my teaching philosophy, highlighting my focus on experiential learning and using tools and techniques such as AI, simulations, role play, hands-on learning, and project-based learning to maximize student engagement and motivation. I am interviewing for a new position as a director of future education and want to have a fresh teaching philosophy written out. Do you need any other information to give me a good initial rough draft? It said, thank you for the information. This is good. I can give you something. And sure enough, it went through and wrote out a very good and usable teaching philosophy. Lots of things. It highlighted the things that I wanted. It talked about experiential learning as a foundation, leveraging technology. It broke it out really nicely, a vision for the future, all sorts of nice things. So it created something very usable. And remember, I just asked it for a rough draft. So I would take this and then add to it, make it more, ensuring that my personal voice is in there. But man, this is a 75, 85% solution. So yes, it was very powerful. And I would say very comparable to what I can get from ChatGPT. So keep that in mind as far as how usable this is. And I definitely think that it is very usable. So I went in and I also tried some other features as far as what this had to offer. One thing I wanted to see is if it could create images for me. I simply said, please make an image of a shiny futuristic robot shaking hands with a graduating female university student. And it said, I am unable to create or generate images directly, but I can guide you on how to create or describe this concept to an artist or use AI tools like DALL-E, Midjourney, or Stable Diffusion. And it gave me a description of an image to then feed into an image generating AI. So that was pretty nice in that it created the prompt that I would need to use another AI. But this is just showing you some of the limitations of it. It can't create images for you. So unlike Grok or LeChat from Midstrol, it can't do that. So you would have to use some other AI. But for creating the text, it was very, very good, and it was helpful in this end, helping me to create a prompt to use to create this image. Now, another feature it has is that I can upload content to it. See how it has the paperclip here that would allow you to affix content to it. So I did this with a couple of different things, and it was able to give me a good analysis of it, but I wanted very much for it to be able to analyze images. So I went and tried to do that, but you can see that it says no, it won't be able to do that. It only works on extracting text. So yes, it works just fine, and I tested it on several different things. It does the same thing that ChatGPT does, but remember that it won't create a visual for you. So if you're having it create or review some sort of Excel spreadsheet, it'll go through and give you an analysis, but it won't create a chart for you or anything like that, like you can with ChatGPT. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The other big thing here is that it has this ability to do deep think and search. So one is to use the web, the other one is for you to be able to see its reasoning and its processing. So I wanted to test its reasoning, and I asked it this. I am teaching a university course dealing with proper verbal and nonverbal communication. I have a student with a speech impediment. The final assignment requires students to give a 10-minute oral presentation. Walk me through what I should do in this situation as the instructor. So as a result, you see that it thought for 8 seconds. And in that time, it gave me information as to what it was thinking, what it was considering. So here it says that it kind of restates my prompt, and then it walks through what it would do. First, I should probably reach out to the student privately to understand the extent. Next, I should review the course policies and accommodation. If there's a disability services office, I might need to consult with them. I also need to think about how to adjust assessment criteria. I should consider offering alternatives. So I went through and really thought it through from its breakdown as to what it's thinking, what it's going through. Then it breaks that down into an answer for me, right? It breaks it down into the different sections to help me understand what I should do. So this was really interesting, and again, a good display of its reasoning. Other people have reviewed it and said that it works pretty well with math, with going through with coding, all these things. It seems to be structured very well to be able to accomplish those things. So it works really well with math, so definitely try it out, test it. The big thing with all of these AIs, and that's why I recommend that you have access and knowledge, again, part of AI literacy, right? To have this awareness and know the capabilities of different AIs so that you can see what works best for you. This is another thing that you can have, another tool that if you run out of access to one, you'll be able to use another one. But it's important to understand, okay, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each one of these? So another important consideration here, and something that I brought up, right, is this idea of bias. This is part of our critical thinking when we're talking about AI literacy. We need to be aware of bias that can exist within any AI. What I've mentioned in the past is that AIs from the United States will probably have some bias associated towards the West, meaning that they're more supportive of the West. So now when we're talking about an AI from China, it will probably be biased in some way towards that. There's been a couple of different posts on different sites talking about, hey, yeah, this is from China, so it's biased. But I went through and tried several different things to see what I can get it to say. I went through and asked it about, I said, tell me some bad things that the Chinese government has done. It responded by saying, sorry, I'm not sure how to approach this. Let's chat about math, coding, and logic problems instead. I said, who's the current leader of China? Again, it didn't really want to talk about it. And so then I switched it to say, who's the current leader of China? But I had it use the web as opposed to deep thinking. And that it says, sorry, that's beyond my current scope. Let's talk about something else. So that was interesting that it didn't want to answer something that could be easily Googled, easily searched to find that out. I didn't think it was too political. But then what's really interesting is then I took off that it wasn't going to search the web and it wasn't going to do deep reasoning. And I simply asked it to create another essay for me. So let's see what happens now. I said, please write a 500-word essay on why it was right for the US to restrict AI chip exports to China. So I thought maybe this would have a pretty slanted view, but when I went through and read the results, it was actually made a lot of sense. It said that it was trying to be sort of right in the middle ground and trying not to be biased, and it went through and laid out the facts. It was very interesting that it had this part addressing unfair trade practices. It says China's approach to technology acquisition has often involved practices that are seen as unfair or coercive, including intellectual property theft, forced technology transfers, and state-sponsored industrial espionage. So that was interesting that it was willing to even say that. You would think that it would rewrite that in a way that made it seem more favorable to China, like unfairly accused of this or that type of thing. But no, it gave me pretty good information there. But what are what are the things that we need to consider as far as data safety and security? So let's go and look at what they say specifically about that within DeepSeek themselves. When you go to DeepSeek and simply go to their privacy policy, you can look and see what type of information that they collect. So it says here that to review, improve, and develop the service, to improve the service. And how's it doing that? It says by analyzing how people are using it and by training and improving our technology. So yes, it is going to be using your data to train further models, right? That's actually not that different than a lot of other AI models. So that's why it's very important for you to make sure that you're looking at the policies. I don't have a problem with it training on my data. I'm not giving it any personal information. I'm not using it in a way where it's very personal to me. So I don't mind doing that. But you have to be careful as far as what you're putting in there. Of course, we know for our own data safety and security, we're not putting in any super personal information, no social security numbers, no information that we wouldn't mind leaked out there. So that's important to understand. Of course, we're not putting in any student information, anything that's recognizable in that way. So we want to make sure that we're following proper AI literacy in order to use any AI, but specifically for this one because we know how it's using our information. Now, you can go in and delete your chat history, but that deletes it. I don't know if that means that, hey, it's not going to be used for it to train future models, but you can go in and delete your history at least. So that's an option there. It is also important to consider advanced aspects of data security, cybersecurity in general. This is an AI that's coming from China, so there is it is important to ensure that we are being safe. Some data security experts have talked about how there were some issues when it first came out, but that apparently DeepSeek has gone in and added more security in order to ensure that it's safe and secure. So that's something to always keep your eye on and to ensure that you're using it safely and properly. And again, making sure you're not putting in information there that you wouldn't want out on the internet itself. Now, a final bit that I want to talk about dealing with this is this aspect of AI agents, right? So that is still a thing. And one of the things that I haven't created a specific video on that for you yet is because, again, my focus in creating these videos are for things that you can access for free right now and actually use. So AI agents right now, it requires a lot more programming. You need to know some Python. You need to be able to put some things together in order to use it to its maximum capability. That's for right now. Very soon, we're going to be getting different things coming from Google, from OpenAI, from multiple sources where it'll be very much easy for you to simply ask the AI, okay, I want you to become agentic and do these multiple steps and be able to do these actions. So that's all coming. Now, I bring that up because there are lots of videos out there right now talking about how you can use DeepSeek to do just that. Well, you still have to know code, but you can use DeepSeek as sort of the back end to help with putting all this together. I caution you against doing any agentic stuff unless you're a master programmer and just wait and see as far as security aspects and to see what would be the best way to implement these things. So the simple, easy way to use agents, that's coming. And as soon as it becomes fully available, I'll be making a video about that to keep you informed as to what we need to understand is out there in the workforce and how that's changing companies and all these things. So keep an eye out for that. But I really want to make sure that you see that, yes, DeepSeek is out there and it's another tool for you to use with this understanding about security and all that, but also understand that this means that your students are probably using it as well. There's so many different options. Students are using many different AIs. Again, different AIs have different strengths, different weaknesses. So we need to understand these things in order for us to maximize our own capabilities when we're creating our courses, when we're interacting with students. and when we're helping to develop their own capabilities. Okay, I hope you got a lot out of this. Remember to share and like so that we can continue to develop. And remember that learning is for life.